Germany just fired back at Trump with a move that has the entire EV industry holding its breath. And Canadian manufacturing might be the unexpected casualty caught in the crossfire. What started as just another Trump tariff announcement has spiraled into what experts are calling a perfect storm for Canada's growing electric vehicle sector. The next few minutes will reveal exactly how this diplomatic chess match might cost thousands of Canadian jobs. When Donald Trump announced his intention to impose a staggering 25% tariff on European vehicles, most analysts expected the usual diplomatic protests, but Germany had something entirely different in mind. The former president's threat specifically targeted the crown jewels of German industry, BMW, Mercedes and Volkswagen, with a tariff hike that would effectively price these vehicles out of the American market. What nobody anticipated was the speed and scope of Germany's response. Within weeks, Germany's economic ministry unveiled what they're calling Project Zukunft, or Project Future, a comprehensive economic realignment that goes far beyond simple retaliatory tariffs. Economic Minister Robert Habeck didn't mince words when he announced, if the United States chooses isolation, Germany will choose new partnerships. The numbers tell the story. German auto manufacturers have cancelled over €3.2 billion in planned North American investments since June 2024. BMW alone has redirected €780 million previously earmarked for a Canadian battery production facility to alternative sites in Hungary and Morocco. These aren't temporary protest measures, they represent a fundamental strategic pivot. What's particularly alarming for Canadian manufacturers is how quickly German companies began severing supply relationships. Magna International, Canada's automotive parts giant with facilities across Ontario, has reported the cancellation of €240 million in component orders from German manufacturers in the past quarter alone. These aren't future contracts. These are existing production agreements being terminated with minimal notice. The German strategy extends well beyond the automotive sector. Chemical giant BASF has suspended plans for a €460 million EV battery materials facility in Quebec, redirecting those resources to expanding their operations in Finland. This pattern repeats across multiple industries: precision manufacturing, robotics, industrial machinery, all sectors where Canadian firms had built stable supply relationships with German partners. Perhaps most concerning is Germany's deliberate leveraging of EU trade agreements to create entirely new supply chains that exclude North America altogether. The EU-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement and the EU-South Korea Free Trade Agreement are being rapidly expanded to accommodate new manufacturing partnerships. German officials are openly discussing the creation of what they're calling a resilient sphere, a network of trade relationships designed specifically to reduce dependency on North American markets. For Canadian manufacturers, the stakes couldn't be higher. In 2022 alone, Canadian companies exported over $7.4 billion in EV components and materials to German manufacturers. That represented more than 42,000 high-paying jobs across the country. The situation in Windsor, Ontario offers a microcosm of the broader crisis. ZF Friedrichshafen, a major German auto parts manufacturer, has already begun phasing out production at their Canadian facility. Plant manager Christine Weber delivered the news to employees last month. This isn't a temporary adjustment. We've been instructed to transition all North American production to our facilities in Eastern Europe and Mexico within 18 months. What makes Germany's response so devastating for Canada is its systematic nature. This isn't simply about imposing matching tariffs that might be negotiated away in future trade talks. Germany is fundamentally restructuring its entire industrial strategy to create independence from North American markets. Economic Minister Habeck put it bluntly in a recent interview. Robert Habeck wrote, "We're not just changing where we sell, we're changing who we build with." The early numbers show this strategy is already having its intended effect. German exports to the United States have declined 17%, while German exports to partner countries in Asia and Eastern Europe have increased by 23% and 19% respectively. Rather than fighting for access to American markets, Germany has simply decided to build new ones. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Did you know over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing? Subscribing is free and it helps us create more content you love. So go ahead and hit that button. It only takes a second. Thanks so much, and now back to the video. As Germany pivots east, Canada finds itself in an impossible position. Too integrated with America to escape Trump's tariffs, yet too dependent on European partnerships to survive Germany's exodus. While politicians in Ottawa debate policy responses, Windsor's manufacturing district tells the real story. At Avatec's Utility Solutions, management announced 124 layoffs last week after German auto suppliers abruptly terminated contracts. For every direct automotive job lost, 7 support positions disappear within 18 months, a devastating multiplier effect already visible across Ontario's manufacturing corridor. The numbers paint a troubling picture of Canada's vulnerability. Nearly 89,000 Canadian jobs are directly tied to the European automotive supply chain, with over 63,000 concentrated in Ontario alone. Unlike American manufacturers who primarily serve their domestic market, Canadian facilities were specifically designed to be integration hubs, taking European technology and adapting it for North American standards and regulations. We've spent decades positioning ourselves as the perfect bridge between European engineering and American markets, explains Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. Now that bridge is collapsing from both ends simultaneously, and our workers are the ones falling into the chasm. This unique role has transformed into Canada's greatest weakness. Take Electra battery materials in Northern Ontario. Their $900 million facility broke ground last year, specifically to process cobalt and nickel for both VW's Tennessee operations and Mercedes-Benz's Hungarian battery plant. Now both German manufacturers have suspended their offtake agreements, leaving Electra's half-built facility without guaranteed customers on either continent. The situation in Quebec appears equally dire. 3 battery precursor facilities under construction near Montreal were designed around specifications from German chemical giants. Last Tuesday, Nemaska Lithium announced the immediate suspension of construction, furloughing 340 workers after receiving notice that their German technology partner was reassessing global investment priorities. Internal documents from Export Development Canada reveal the government knew this scenario was possible. A risk assessment from March 2023 specifically warned that Canada's intermediate position in transatlantic supply chains creates acute vulnerability to trade disputes between principal partners. The report recommended developing contingency plans for automotive and battery material sectors, plans that either weren't created or haven't been implemented. Perhaps most concerning is the overnight erasure of technology transfer agreements. Canadian innovation centres have relied heavily on German technical expertise, particularly in battery chemistry and lightweight materials. Martin Reher International, which employs over 14,000 Canadians, reported last week that their German partners have suspended all technical support for joint development projects. "They've simply gone dark," says Rob Wildeboer, Martin Rea's executive chairman. "Equipment we ordered isn't shipping. Engineers who were scheduled to visit aren't coming. Material specifications and testing protocols we need have been withheld. They are methodically removing their intellectual property from our shared ecosystem." The timing couldn't be worse. Canada's vulnerability extends beyond manufacturing jobs to massive investments in critical mineral development. The federal government has committed over $3.8 billion to develop domestic supply chains for lithium, graphite, and rare earth elements, materials that were supposed to feed into processing facilities now facing uncertain futures. LG Energy Solutions' partnership with Stellantis in Windsor stands as a rare bright spot protected largely by South Korean ownership and explicit guarantees from the Canadian government. But this $5 billion factory will exist as an island in a decimated landscape if current trends continue. Subcontractors who were counting on additional European partnerships to diversify their customer base now find themselves entirely dependent on a single project. Federal programs designed to assist displaced workers are already showing signs of strain. The Community Workforce Response Grant Program, intended to help retrain automotive workers, received over 4,800 applications in August alone, more than the previous 2 years combined. Clair College in Windsor has developed emergency short courses to help workers transition, but instructor Dave Bellinger doesn't mince words. "We're retraining people for jobs that largely don't exist in this region anymore. The specialized manufacturing ecosystem that supported these workers is unraveling faster than new industries can absorb them." As Canadian workers struggle to find new opportunities, a far more calculated game is unfolding behind closed doors. What started as a tariff dispute has evolved into a global power realignment that's been months in the making. The meetings that took place in Beijing just 48 hours after Trump's tariff announcement weren't coincidental. They were the culmination of a strategy that's been developing since well before the current crisis. Chinese Premier Li Qiang and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz didn't waste time on pleasantries when they met in Beijing. Within hours, they announced the creation of a German-Chinese green technologies acceleration platform, a framework designed to integrate battery production, electric motor development, and autonomous driving technologies between the two nations. This wasn't a snap decision, but rather the public unveiling of plans that had been quietly developing for months. The timing couldn't have been worse for Canada. Just as Canadian manufacturers were reeling from contract cancellations, China's CATL announced a €3.1 billion battery cell manufacturing partnership with Mercedes-Benz, a facility that will produce precisely the components Canadian suppliers had been contracted to deliver. German officials didn't even try to hide the correlation, with Economy Minister Habeck plainly stating during the Beijing visit that new partnerships require new priorities. What's particularly alarming is how rapidly Chinese firms have filled the void left by severed Canadian relationships. Volkswagen's new joint venture with Chinese battery giant BYD includes technology transfer arrangements that had originally been earmarked for Canadian innovation hubs. Within 3 weeks of the tariff announcement, Volkswagen redirected €420 million in research and development funding from North American partners to this new Chinese alliance. The mineral supply chain tells an equally troubling story. German investment that once flowed toward Canadian critical minerals has abruptly shifted to Chinese-controlled African sources. Siemens Energy cancelled its 30% stake in a Northern Ontario lithium project, while simultaneously increasing its investment in the Chinese-operated Monono mine in the Democratic Republic of Congo by €280 million. The pattern is unmistakable. European capital is bypassing Canada entirely. Former Canadian ambassador to China, Guy Saint-Jacques doesn't mince words. We're witnessing the formation of two competing global EV ecosystems, one anchored by the United States and another by a surprising EU-China alliance. Canada appears stranded between them, with diminishing relevance to either. The systematic nature of this shift becomes clear when examining intellectual property flows. German patent filings with Canadian co-inventors have plummeted 68% since January, while German-Chinese joint patent applications have surged 41%. Bosch's Stuttgart Research Hub, which had maintained development partnerships with 6 Canadian universities, has established new cooperative agreements with Chinese institutions at Tsinghua and Shanghai Jiao Tong universities. Perhaps most revealing is the sudden eagerness of German officials to grant Chinese EV manufacturers access to European markets. Just last week, EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis announced a streamlined approval framework for Chinese electric vehicles meeting certain European partnership requirements, effectively creating a backdoor for Chinese manufacturers to enter Europe while bypassing North American supply chains entirely. The strategic calculation is now obvious. Germany isn't simply retaliating against Trump's tariffs. They're executing a fundamental pivot that reconfigures the entire global EV landscape. By aligning with Chinese manufacturers, securing access to Chinese battery technology, and establishing new mineral supply chains through Chinese-controlled sources, Germany has initiated what economics professor Patrick Leblond calls the most significant realignment of automotive trade relationships since NAFTA. And where does this leave Canada? Industry consultant Brendan Sweeney of the Trillium Network puts it bluntly. Canada built its EV strategy around being the bridge between European technology and North American markets. That bridge has not just been damaged, it's been deliberately dismantled from the European side. The evidence is undeniable. When Continental AG terminated its partnership with Quebec's additive manufacturing cluster last month, they didn't simply cancel the relationship. They transferred the entire technology development program to Guangzhou, along with the intellectual property that Canadian engineers had helped develop. So here we stand at a crossroads for Canada's EV industry. The federal government's response has been alarmingly passive, issuing statements about monitoring the situation while thousands of jobs vanish. Their proposed $120 million emergency fund for affected workers is merely a bandage on a hemorrhaging wound. What's truly at stake isn't just choosing sides in a trade war. The brutal reality is that Canada may have already been removed from the global EV equation entirely. Both Germany and America are finding new partners, leaving us with empty factories and unfulfilled promises. The upcoming federal election isn't just about politics. It's about whether Canada will have any manufacturing future worth fighting for. Thanks for watching. With Germany realigning its global partnerships and Canada's EV future hanging in the balance, one question remains. Has Canada already been cut out of the global electric vehicle revolution? Or is there still time to fight back? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is Ottawa doing enough to protect Canadian jobs and industry? Should we be pivoting toward new alliances of our own? If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss critical updates on Canada's place in a changing world. Want to explore more about Canada's role in global trade and energy? Click on any of the videos now on your